coming to the Sunday Show. Congresswoman, I would love your thoughts on the Judiciary Committee's probe into Fani Willis, especially since Governor Kemp, Georgia's own governor, refused to hold a special session that would have impeached the Fulton County DA.
Yeah, this should surprise nobody. This is what the playbook is for both the Oversight Committee and the Judiciary Committee, making accusations, making innuendos, and they never have the receipts, ever. This is about showmanship. This is about making sure that there is a committee distraction to give cover to the president. That is what this is always about.
Kurt, since you're sitting right here, I'm going to give the next question to you because Colton Moore, a Georgia state senator and Trump supporter, made this chilling comment about what could happen if DA Willis isn't stopped from prosecuting Donald Trump. Listen to this.
We need to be taking action right now, because if we don't, our constituencies are going to be fighting it in the streets. Do you want a civil war? I don't want a civil war. I don't want to have to draw my rifle.
So, Kurt, Senator Lindsey Graham has made similar comments throughout the year, so this isn't new. But explain why and how this kind of rhetoric remains so dangerous.
Well, it really starts with what we saw with January 6th and the run-up to January 6th. We have seen now, because of what happened on that day, it's not just words, it's not just empty rhetoric, it's not just theater. When these people use those words, their audience, their following, their cult, they see it as marching orders. They see it as instruction. So when someone says something like, well, I would hate to have to raise arms and I'd hate to see a civil war, what he's saying is, I want a civil war. I want you to raise arms. If we don't get our way, if the politics don't go our way, the only response is violence. That's terrorism. I don't care what anybody says, what words people want to dump. That is terrorism. When you don't get political means and you resort to violence, that is terrorism endorsed by elected Republican officials. Why isn't every single Republican right now in any elected office condemning that statement? Because they like it. They endorse it. They want to see that happen.
And listening to your answer, Kurt, it takes me back to the censuses that we have seen for Oath Keepers and Proud Boys who, a couple of them crying at their sentencing because they're like, I was following orders from the President of the United States. I mean, Ruth, in states like Florida and Texas, conservatives are removing or attempting to remove elected progressive prosecutors from their positions. This doesn't surprise you, does it?
No, this is a party in not only in damage control mode, but in full-on panic mode and in destructive nihilistic mode. I mean, all the indictments, the shocking mugshot of their cult leader, Trump and his co-conspirators, and also, the prosecutions of Proud Boys operatives like Biggs, the lengthy sentences, they're not just a deterrent. Because the GOP has such close ties with extremist groups and uses the Proud Boys as a kind of de facto paramilitary, these things that are happening are a strike at a whole extremist worldview and an extremist playbook. And so all they can do is strike back by threatening impeachments, and I call this garbage politics, and also threatening to remove any politician who stands up for the rule of law.
Ruth, you mentioned the mugshots that we all got to see last week, but you wrote a piece about the mugshot of former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. Real quickly, talk about why his mugshot in particular struck you so.
Yeah, this really haunted me because in my book, Strongman, is full of these people. Trump specializes in cultivating people, making them loyal, making them complicit, but also leading them to do things they never imagined they would do, like have an assault on the U.S. Capitol, and then telling them that as long as they stay loyal, they will be safe, they will be beyond prosecution. So the shock as well as the anger in that mugshot is someone who has realized that he is not indeed safe, and neither is his leader.
Yeah, and if you haven't read it yet, there's an op-ed in the in the New York Times today by Chris Whipple about how Mark Meadows is a danger for the country if President Trump gets back into office. Congresswoman Balint, we're going to talk more about this in the next block, but Speaker McCarthy is telling Republicans, his Republican colleagues, that shutting down the government would make it harder to start the impeachment process for President Biden. What's he up to here?
Yeah, so he's trying to use this as leverage because he knows the extremists in the conference are in charge. Marjorie Taylor Greene and others like her are the ones driving the train. And so what I want us to focus on, too, is not just people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, but all of the so-called, and I use so-called moderates who stand by and let this all happen, because those are the people we need to hear from. They know it's a farce. They have said so in the last few days about this impeachment hostage taking that Marjorie Taylor Greene is doing. They know it's a sham, but they will go along with it in the end. And that is the dangerous thing for all of us, because Trump is not singular. Another one will come in his place. If they don't deal with it now, they're going to be dealing with it from another leader who comes after him. Mm-hmm.
And Kurt, on this impeachment talk, the potential of an impeachment inquiry and then a full-on impeachment, President Biden's White House, they've assembled a war room of 24 lawyers as an aggressive response to all this. Is this an appropriate response? And what does it say about the current state of American politics that this is even necessary?
Yeah, it is necessary because this is going to be unlike any impeachment that we've ever seen before because, one, there's absolutely no grounds for it. Even Republicans in Congress admit there's no evidence right now linking President Biden to anything illegal, illicit, controversial, anything at all. They don't have the goods, but they're going to do this as a political tool. So the White House is right to assemble a campaign-esque war room of rapid response of lawyers and communication staffers to push back on all of the nonsense we're going to see. Republicans are just going to lie. They're going to gaslight. They're going to make stuff up and hope that they get some traction to distract away from the fact that they have no agenda, no vision for the American people, and they can't negotiate with their own majority to pass a budget. So they do these types of things while also running cover for their client, Donald J. Trump. The White House is on top of it. It's actually reassuring to see that they're taking the threat seriously. You cannot give these people an inch, any ground at all. You have to forcefully push back every single time that they use this stuff. Because, again, this is impeachment. This is historic. It is important. It is meaningful. The fact that Republicans are wielding it this way for just purely political and revenge purposes to protect a real criminal in Donald Trump says that the White House is absolutely right in preparing for battle.
Ruth, real quickly, you know, we played at the top of this segment Trump's interview with Glenn Beck, where he said he's going to arrest his opponents if he gets back into the White House. Why should why should Americans take that kind of talk seriously?
Because Trump means it. We have to take very seriously everything he says. If we had taken seriously his January 2016 comment that he could shoot someone, we would be in a better place right now.
All right, my panel is going to stay with me, and we're going to continue this the conversation after the break. But you got to know this: I misspoke. The government shutdown could happen October 1st, not August 1st. Can you tell I'm just back from vacation? We'll be back after this.
I've already decided I will not vote to fund the government unless we have passed an impeachment inquiry on Joe Biden. There should be no funding for Jack Smith's special counsel. I will not vote for a continuing resolution that funds mask mandates, vaccine mandates, and COVID. And lastly, my red line in the sand has always been, I will not vote to fund a war in Ukraine.
That was Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene threatening to withhold her vote to fund the government unless her long list of demands are met. My panel is back with me to unpack all of that. Congresswoman Balint, you're the only member of Congress on this panel. So your response to Congresswoman Greene's list of demands?
Well, that's what they are, demands. And I just want to highlight for you something that Speaker McCarthy said about Marjorie Taylor Greene in July, because I think it got lost and we need to understand how close they are. He said, quote, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of the best members we have. She is one of the strongest legislators. I support Marjorie Taylor Greene very strongly. He said that in an interview in July. So we should not at all be surprised that she is the one driving the agenda for the Republican conference. And it is It should be alarming to all Americans because this is about power for power's sake, and it's also about defending former President Trump no matter what he has done to this country.
Right, and Ruth, to the Congresswoman's point, Congresswoman Green is demanding that Special Counsel Jack Smith be defunded. So is this just a typical pattern of someone like Trump having others do his dirty work?
It is, and I think it's really important that we don't see Marjorie Taylor Greene as a clown. She is an information warrior. She is highly dangerous, and her talking points on many subjects align with Putin's talking points. And so there's a whole design of transnational extremism that she is part of, and creating a sense of crisis, holding the government hostage. These are authoritarian methods and also information warfare talking points.
Ruth, that is actually, thank you for making that point. I mean, we all have a lot of fun poking fun at Congresswoman Green, but we do need to take her seriously, especially given the quote that Congresswoman Balint read to us from Speaker McCarthy about her from back in July. So Kurt, Congresswoman Green also said that she would, quote, not fund the Biden regime's weaponized government, and that Congress needs to rein in the FBI. What threat does this type of rhetoric pose to the rule of law?
Yeah, it's interesting that the party that masquerades as the party of law and order wants to defund the FBI. Why is it that when it's a person of color involved in any type of law enforcement situation, Republicans are all about law and order, they're all about back in the blue, and they're all about police. But when it's a white guy in a suit allegedly committing crimes, we need to defund them. We need to defund any prosecutorial office involved in it. We need to investigate the investigators. That's our default position, protecting a white-collar criminal and someone who led an insurrection attempt against our United States Capitol and our democracy. The fact that this is the posture that the de facto Speaker of the House, Marjorie Taylor Greene, is taking, while Kevin McCarthy basically acts as just her lapdog sitting there and rubber stamping everything that she says, as the Congresswoman pointed out, that is absolutely disturbing. It just tells you there is no leadership right now in this conference. It is a free-for-all. It is the Wild West, and anything could happen because they are out of control, undisciplined, and they don't care at all about what the consequences are of their actions.
Right, they don't at all. And, to put an exclamation point on this conversation, there is a new Wall Street Journal poll that just came out this morning, and let's put it up on the screen. And you can see Donald Trump has 59% support. Ron DeSantis is the next in line at 13. And, I'm not good at math, but that is a 46-point gap, a 46 percentage point gap between Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. Kurt, you first, and I would love everybody to talk about this. But Kurt, what does that say? What does that tell you about the current state of the Republican Party?
It's an embarrassment. Like, for years, we have heard, from background sources, off the record sources, Republicans just want to move on from Donald Trump. They would do anything to move on from Donald Trump. They can't stand Donald Trump. They know that he's a political loser for them. Yet they still can't get their act together, and they're literally repeating the same mistakes from 2016 with the last, it's not like this is brand new here. We're 7 years into this, and yet here they go. This large field of candidates, they can't coalesce around a single person to actually take on Trump one-on-one. And the person they went all in on to do that, Ron DeSantis, is an embarrassment. He should just get out of this thing. I mean, it is the ultimate act of political malpractice, what he has done in this race to his own brand, to his own ambitions. He needs to step out, but they don't have the answer for Donald Trump right now, and so they're just going to run it back. That's what they've said. Now we've lost in 20, we've lost in 2022, we've lost all these ballot initiatives across states that were red. Let's just do the same thing over again, and maybe something different will happen.
And, to put another fine point on the politics here, the President of the United States is headed to Florida today because Florida was hit by a hurricane, and the sitting Governor Ron DeSantis isn't planning on meeting with the president while he's there. Ruth, what is that 46-point lead that Donald Trump has over Ron DeSantis tell you about the Republican Party?
So, Jonathan, I've been saying for a while, as you know, that the GOP is now an autocratic party. and it is a party in thrall to a cult leader. I will never forget the side of that debate with the majority of candidates running against Trump saying that they would vote for him even if he's a convicted felon. And, you know, when I'm interviewed by people who are abroad, whether it's New Zealand yesterday or France, they are distraught at what is happening in America. They can't understand how someone like Trump could be leading. It just makes this is a design not only to wreck democracy at home by the GOP, but to take away America's influence in the world and make us a laughingstock and something we've never been before.
Mm-hmm. And Congresswoman Balint, how does that 46 percentage point lead that Trump has, how will that impact action on Capitol Hill when you guys come back into session on Tuesday?
Look, Jonathan, it comes down to one thing for me, which is this is a time that requires deep courage. Nothing is going to change unless the so-called moderates within the conference stand up, reject, rebuke this kind of, as the panelists said, you know, autocratic style leadership from Trump. They think that they're going to turn the page on Trump. They're not. There's going to be another one coming behind him if they don't deal with it now. We need courage. We need people to stand up. We need decent people to stand up.
We're doomed.
I was about to say, because that requires a spine, and we have not seen that yet. Congresswoman Becca Balint, Kurt Bardella, Ruth Ben-Ghiat, as always, thank you all for coming to the Saturday show. And up next,